Welcome or welcome back. We finished up our first world of the backside and are now moving into the Etchstone Cliffs. It's another one of those worlds that is way cooler the first time you go through it. And that really just won't come through in this video because, well, I have to explain the mechanic, so it's not really going to be as exciting. So, as I always say, and I especially mean it here, please play the game yourself if you haven't. I think past this world, most mechanics aren't that crazy in terms of the reveal, so I'd only really be saying it just because I like the puzzles. But again, this one is very special. But that's probably enough shilling, so let's actually get into the spoilers for the following mechanics. Bulk doors, master keys, blank doors, blast doors, exact keys, ores and door effects, golden doors, brown doors, pure keys and doors, negative keys and doors, sign flip keys, negative brown keys, bicolor doors, and star and unstar keys. As per usual, either play the game so you know these mechanics or watch my previous videos on their respective worlds to understand them. But without any further ado, as the level says, this looks to be completely impossible at first. You need access to the 1 lock white, which is blocked by a 6 locks purple on either end, meaning you'd have to master key 1 to access it, and thus couldn't clear all your purples later. But there is one thing that we could do now that we've not had access to until now. And that's right, it's that one bicolored door. Obviously, opening it with one or more masters won't actually do anything. It'll just remove a master. But if you were to open it at 0, you actually go to -1 master keys. This is truly one of the biggest and most interesting mechanics and reveals, and I really do hope that you tried to figure this out yourself before I showed it off. These negative master keys can be used in the same way you'd use a positive one, but logically, instead of opening a door, it adds a copy of the door to the same position. Think of positive master keys as subtracting from the door count, similar to how positive doors subtract from your key count, and thus a negative master key adds to the door count, same as how negative doors add to your key count. But with that mechanic discovered, you can now see you'll just need to spend all your masters and then duplicate the purple to leave. Here we can immediately see we'll be forced into 12 white without being able to spend them normally, so we'll need to spend 1 master to be able to open the 8 lock white twice, after opening the bicolored pink to get 4 more. We can obviously use the bicolored white and purple once to open one of the purple gates, but if we wanted to use that twice, we need to spend 3 more master keys, 2 on the negative pink and white and 1 on the aforementioned purple. But because of a blank white later on, we need to spend another master that we don't have to get rid of the 8 white for that. So we'll have to use the cyan purple door instead for one of the purple gates, which, because of the blank, means we'll need to spend 2 masters on the -1 purple so we can actually get down to 0. From there, as we said, we need to go down to 2 cyan, so add 1 more to the 3 cyan and just follow the route from there. And I don't know why, but this took me like really long to actually figure out. It's counting the locks again, but you make the locks this time. This is literally just subtract the biggest number you can as many times as possible, repeat until you're at 0. Then add however many you need for that. I don't really have much to say about this one. You really should be able to do this very simply. Slow it down if you need to, I guess. We'll need to get down to 0 of both brown and masters. For brown, we'll need to take all the brown keys, specifically the exact first, then whichever afterwards. For the exact brown, we'll force to take a master, same with the top, which, considering the 11 masters are also forced, we effectively have 12 masters that will always be forced to hold at some point. Which, we do have a door that is a multiple of 6 and an otherwise useless -1 master. So if we can add a copy of that door, then we could get down to 0 off that. And that is unsurprisingly quite doable. You can curse and open from top down, and after opening the second, now that you're at 0, you take the -1 master, the curse, and copy the 6 door. Then you can take the exact key, the -2, and then spend all your masters and clear your last round to leave. There's a very distinct elephant in the room and title, but for now, let's just focus on getting through the blank doors at the end, and then I'll wrap back around to that. We need to spend 16 white, which can only be done via the 6, 5, 1, and 4, meaning we must use a master on the 2 lock. As for purple, that's a little bit more complicated, but not by much. Obviously, the -4 and -2 will be forced, but we have to think a bit about other things before picking what's next. We know we need the 6 lock white, meaning we'll have to get 8 master to open the gold before it, which can only be done via the bicolored -8 lock door at the bottom. So we'll have to have -8 purple still by there, and thus must master the -2 lock purple before that, which, after we get through most of that, leaves the elephant. How do we cross that bridge? Well, your first thought would usually just be to get more white after opening the blank door. However, the only way to do that needs bicolored -4 purple, and there's no way to gain that many, and obviously you can't open it until after opening the blanks and thus spending all your purple, so this can't work. So how else would it be possible to cross? Well, if you've noticed before, there's some iframes for every duplicated door that you open, so you don't just open every copy at once. And it just so happens you can jump high enough to duplicate the bridge. So yes, you actually have to abuse iframes to solve this puzzle. By spinning the -2 masters you get towards the end on the bridge and then crossing it as quick as you can, that'll get you across. This is like definitely a favorite level of mine. Very fun just because of how different it is to the traditional put together the solution and then leave. It's very unique and I really like that about it. First thing to notice, we'll have to go down every route fully to get the 4 pure keys, and moreover spend every key so we have 0 of basically everything by the time we open the pure door. The only difference between the top and bottom routes is whether the master keys are positive or negative. The first move will have to be the topmost route, as the bottom quickly soft locks and the remainder are just obviously useless. Thus, that'll force us to grab our first master. We cannot master key the 12 lock doors without soft locking, so we'll have to master one of the bottom 2 blue doors, and thus duplicate the one before the pure door, so we're still going to be spending all 4 other blues. Between the two, if we went for the bottom, we'd be forced into spending our 12 white, meaning we can't get to nor spend the 5 white that are forced at some point. So we'll have to start next by going to the top. The only way to progress is by spending all our negative masters on the middle blue again. But after that, since we still don't have cyan, we can't go for the top and must use the bottom path. After that, we must duplicate the middle blue again to progress, but then you can see, after clearing all cyan, that we have 2 masters and 2 blues, and exactly 4 copies of the blue door. So we can perfectly clear all of our keys with that and get out of here. Surprise, it's another math puzzle. Not sure if the title hints to it again, but it's fairly clear that you'll need a specific combo of pink and purple to reach the specific counts of negative cyan. So the obvious equation is that, let's say x for purple and y for pink, when added together need to equal 25 by the end. Then you can write the preceding equation as the product of y, since you're setting one master key beforehand, and there's already one copy of the door, and x equaling 84. Now from here it's easier done via a live recording, so you can divide both sides by y or x. I'm going to go for y here, divided by y. So that now we have x in terms of y, which we can then substitute back into the first equation that we have written down here. So now we have 84 over y plus y is equal to 25. Then you can multiply both sides by y, which results in 84 plus y to be 2 is equal to 25y. And I'm going to move this a little bit just so it's not going to go off screen at all. And then we can put everything onto one side. So y squared minus 25y plus 84 is equal to 0, which now you can probably identify that this is a quadratic equation. So put the quadratic equation up there just so we can both reference it very easily. So negative b is just 25 plus or minus. Let's do this in coding terms and just write the square root symbol as that. B squared, that's 25 times 25. That's a very big number. So I'm going to use a calculator for that. 625. I thought so. That was my instinct, but I wanted to make sure. Minus 4 times 1, so we don't have to care about that. And times 84. So 4 times 84. Oops, I typoed. 336, so 625 minus 336 is 289. Find the square root of that on the side, and I'm not afraid to say I'm using a calculator for all of that. That results in 17. So 25 plus or minus 17, which is either 42 or 8, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. And then, of course, this is all over 2a, so in reality, the answers are 21 or 4 as the possible values for y. And since y is opaque, and that's what we'll have to be master keying, it'll be quicker to set y to 4, and obviously x, aka our purple, has to be 21. But with that, we just have to grab the proper keys now and leave the level feeling somewhat smart. As the name implies, you'll be making a loop of door opens to get through the repetitious doors at the top. So you'll need to repeatedly get to negative master keys, then clear them, and finally find a way to open all the doors fully at the end and remove all your brown. You'll obviously need to duplicate the bicolored cyan on the left to actually get negative masters again, thus forcing the brown pickup. And note that we must not cross the bicolored door on the right, as that would lock out a way to actually uncross doors, and to get back up to a positive brown later, we'll need at least 2 copies of the bottom left door. With all that stated and explained, it's more or less just, oh, I need this, so I need to duplicate this to do that, etc. But in short, you make 2 copies of the top and bottom left doors, then clear your brown and use your final master on the right to get down to 0. Repeat this a few times, and once you're at the end of the line, it's basically just a free exit, but as per usual, if you need to see it in action, just slow it down. This is a very esoteric level, as the description states. We have some negative copies of a door. When opening them normally, it's fairly straightforward, but when using master keys, it's completely backwards. A positive master key on an over-opened door adds an additional copy to that door, while a negative master key will open it because it's adding 1 to the amount of doors there. Well, for example, the one guarding a pure key has -1 copies of it. That's the most confusing part of it, but once you understand even just vaguely how they work, it's a pretty traditional level. We need all the pures, and moreover to use all our masters and whites, so we need to add another 6 copies to our existing white doors. It's fairly straightforward in concept to keep your total doors at 8, which, pro tip, you can spend 1 key on each door to keep the count equivalent. But you also need to notice that there's a couple odd master key counts. So for those, you'll need to make sure to add an odd amount of copies for both of those. But by doing that, you can pretty easily finish this up. As always, slow down if you need to, but either way, that will wrap up the short but sweet Etchstone Cliff. Well, that's 1 more down and another few to go. Easily one of the most interesting worlds for the mechanic alone. Also one of the few worlds that only had 1 new mechanic, but that just speaks to the importance of that. Negative master keys are perhaps the single deepest mechanic, not necessarily in terms of, oh my god, there's so much that you don't even know about it yet, but just because there isn't. What it does do is let the level cut out just so much stuff that could otherwise be a dead giveaway to what you need to do, or at least help at all. It forces the player into deciding how they duplicate things, and especially when you throw a brown and or a later door into the mix, they more or less have to make the level to actually solve it. And somehow this can be logically deduced every time, which is the most interesting part to me. It's really cool, and like a lot of these backside world mechanics, it's taking the base concepts that we've already learned in the hub and generalizing them. as Kina says. Also, it's important enough in L.A. Watson's opinion to be the icon of the game, which I can't really argue with that, honestly. I think that's about all I have to actually say about it here, though. Quite the fun mechanic, though, and we'll definitely be seeing it quite regularly going forward. But that should be everything. As always, do whatever YouTube stuff you feel like this deserves, and besides that, I'll just see you next time. See ya.